Hey y'all, it's Io here from Middle Nook, and I was recently in Texas doing a slate of conferences all about special education strategies and tips to make teaching a little easier. We spent a lot of time talking about accommodations and modifications, and I thought this was great information that I should share. So here I am, and we're going to talk a little bit about the accommodations and modifications that you can make in your classroom that will help you with your classroom management, student engagement, and overall instruction. So let's get this started here. First and foremost, why is special education so challenging to teach? Well, because a lot of the job is about adapting and modifying. And I have found over the years that a lot of people don't know the difference between adaptations and modifications. So before we go any further, let's talk about this first. Adaptations and modifications are two very different things. When we talk about adaptations, we're talking about supports that we can give to students so that they can have better access to learning. These are the things like extended time on tests and communication devices and written instructions read aloud. These are the things that we can do to ensure that our students have a fair shot at getting to the goal, which is, if you imagine running down a track, getting from point A to the finish line without the additional hurdles. So when we provide adaptations, we're removing those hurdles so our students can get down the track easier. We're not changing the finish line. The finish line stays the same, but we are changing what is in place or what hurdles our students have to overcome in order to get to that finish line. Those are adaptations. We're removing the barriers of learning. Now, modifications are much different. When we talk about modifications, we are actually changing the course. We're changing the goal line, the finish line for our students, which is a lot different. But we're going to talk about adaptations today. Specifically, we're going to talk about adaptations that you can put into place in your classroom to better manage behaviors. Now, I don't know about you, but this time of year, we tend to see behaviors. I think there's a period at that end of the sentence. I think there's nothing else coming after that. At this time of year, we tend to see behaviors. So putting these types of supports into place will help you better manage behaviors, help your students better manage their behavior, and help them get to the finish line of learning. So let's talk about these real quick. First up is a rule card. Now I know you may think, rule cards, so basic, who needs rule cards? But if you drove to work this morning, I guarantee you saw a lot of rules posted all over the place, even though you know how to drive and you've been driving forever. Because we all need to be reminded of the rules, even when we already know them, which is why speed limit signs are placed so often on the roadway. So think about that. If you're driving and you drive all the time, every day, and you still need to be reminded of the rules, how often do you think your students should be reminded of the rules? A lot, right? So we want to make sure that we have a rule card in the classroom. We might have posted rules for all students, but we might also need individual rule cards for specific students and specific student behaviors. That next thing is a visual schedule. Now listen, a visual schedule is like number one. If you don't have visual schedules in your classroom, start there. These visual schedules are really about helping students to lighten the cognitive load and not have to worry about what's coming next and how long do I have, so that they can focus on learning and the work in front of them. So having a visual schedule, knowing what's coming, really alleviates a lot of stress and can reduce the behaviors in your classroom. So have that visual schedule. Next up is a solid behavior plan. Now, if you are working or challenged by behaviors in the classroom, you should have a behavior plan written, because this is going to give you all the details that you need on exactly what you need to do when behaviors happen and exactly what you need to do to keep behaviors from happening. So twofold is what we're looking for. Having that in a written plan so that you already know ahead of time what your response is going to be and what you're going to do to prevent behaviors is so critically important, but also what visuals and behavior tools are going to be used to mitigate behaviors in the first place. So have a plan. Next are token boards and reward systems. We are all working for something, every single one of us. So make it very clear to your students what they are working for. Give them some parameters, maybe some individual rules, and then reward students for the work that they do in the classroom. That motivation and engagement level will improve the overall outcomes for the students and minimize the behaviors that are happening in your room. Next is a good old-fashioned feelings chart. I mean, when you go to the hospital, they have one on the wall so that they can better ascertain how people are feeling in the moment. Don't feel weird having one of these around, maybe even up on the wall, and coming up with a phrase to cue students for it. I'm not sure how you're feeling right now. Let me know how you're feeling, so that students can really start to become introspective about how they are feeling and what those feelings can exhibit, like with behaviors. But you have to start by knowing what you're feeling. So put that feelings chart out, have it up on the wall, and reference it as often as possible. And then don't forget the preferred items that your students actually are interested in, and then incorporate those preferred items into your lessons and into your instruction. If you can do these simple adaptations that target behaviors specifically, you can get better outcomes in your classroom. And I can guarantee you, if you pair that with all the visual supports that we covered in our last video, and if you missed that, go check it out now, you are going to set yourself up and your students up for better outcomes in the classroom. And listen, that is what we all want. So if you missed the last video all about visuals, go back and check that out. We've now talked about visual adaptations and behavior adaptations. These two sets of adaptations will get you so far in the classroom. So don't stop, get these behavior supports in place right away. If you saw something that you really liked, check out the description box below. I will link to visuals and things down there. And if you liked this information and you feel like I might be the one that needs to come to your campus or your district for professional development, you can reach out to me on my website at www.noodlenook.net. My name is Io Jones, and I'm reminding you to stay strong, teach on, and use more behavior adaptations in the classroom. All right, y'all, I'll see you next time. Can you believe there are even more supports that are covered in this full session? We talked about visual supports and behavior supports, but we also talk about environmental supports, physical supports, instructional supports, and sensory supports. If you want to find out more about all the different types of adaptations you can put into place to help your students to be more successful, definitely check out the details in the description box below.